Additions and subtractions for Steve Sarkisian. What's up, guys? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. 3 days till Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to each and every one of you out there. Hope y'all are staying safe during these crazy times. We're talking Texas football on today's video. Please like this video if you haven't already. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and tap that notification bell so you're always informed whenever I drop new content. We talk all things Texas Longhorn athletics on this channel. So to stay informed, make sure you subscribe and tap that notification bell. So a lot has happened with the Texas football program over the last week and a half. We've seen a lot of attrition, both in terms of players and coaches, both in terms of positive and negative over the last 7 to 10 days. And this shouldn't come as a real surprise to anybody. Attrition happens after you go 5-7, right? You try to change things around to make sure that that doesn't happen again, especially at a place like the University of Texas. And I don't know how hot Steve Sarkisian's seat is right now, but my guess is he doesn't want to go 5-7 again. And my guess is if he does go 5-7 next season, there might not be a third season for Steve Sarkisian in Austin. So needless to say, changes were to be expected, and we're starting to see some changes with the Texas football program. So Quinn Ewers in. Everybody knows this. Everybody and their mother has heard about this and has given an opinion about this at this point. A great get for Texas. That goes without saying. This guy is one of the highest graded recruits in history. He's the highest rated quarterback recruit that Texas has picked up since Vince Young. And I think everybody knows how damn good that guy was. So not comparing Quinn Ewers to Vince Young. That's not me doing that. But on the recruiting trail, the experts who grade these guys in high school, they say Quinn Ewers is pretty damn good. So reason to be excited about the future of the quarterback position at the University of Texas because Quinn Ewers is coming in. Everybody knows his story at this point. Reclassified, enrolled in college early at Ohio State, took advantage of name, image, and likeness, got a lot of money from Ohio State, or at least from boosters who support Ohio State, and decided to transfer after just one season in Columbus. Of course, he only took 2 snaps as a freshman at Ohio State. So not a lot of college experience. Age-wise, Quinn Ewers should be a true freshman, right? He skipped his senior year of high school. So this should be his freshman year, his true freshman year of college football in 2022. But he does have some college experience, not a lot of game experience. Once again, only 2 snaps in actual games at Ohio State. But he's practiced against college players at a great program at Ohio State. So Quinn Ewers is in, and the side effect of that happening is Casey Thompson is now out. On Friday, Casey Thompson entered the transfer portal. No big surprise here. Guys, I honestly thought there was a chance that either Casey Thompson or Hudson Card would have entered the portal, even if Texas didn't land Quinn Ewers. But now that Texas did land Quinn Ewers, the quarterback room is loaded, right? You already are bringing in Malik Murphy as well as part of the class of 2022. That would have been 5 quarterbacks that Texas had on scholarship in their quarterback room, with Quinn Ewers, Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, Malik Murphy, and Charles Wright as well. No obvious path to playing time for Casey Thompson, and he has 1 year left of college eligibility. So understandable that he doesn't want to go through another quarterback competition and try to win the quarterback battle for Texas once again. 1 year left. Understand that he wants to transfer out. And look, I wish Casey Thompson all of the best. We'll all remember his Alamo Bowl performance against Colorado. What he did in the second half in relief of Sam Ehlinger was spectacular, an unbelievable performance. And we saw some really good things from Casey Thompson this year. We saw some flashes of brilliance from him, but unfortunately the consistency just was not there, especially during the second half of the season. There will always be that what could have been question for me with Casey Thompson. Like, if he was 100% healthy throughout the course of this season, how much better would he have been? We'll never know. The thumb injury was an issue. You could tell he was messing with it throughout games over the second half of the season. He had to miss some time because of that injury as well. So if Casey Thompson had stayed healthy throughout the 2021 season, how much better could he have been? How much better could Texas have been? Unfortunately, we'll never know the answer to that question. But I get it. Loaded quarterback room. Casey Thompson wanting to play, next year, and he's got 1 year left of college eligibility, and there was no clear path to playing time at Texas. And look, let's be honest, Casey Thompson was not recruited by Steve Sarkisian. Casey Thompson was recruited by Tom Herman. He committed and signed to play at Texas when Tom Herman was the head coach. Tom Herman's offense is different than Steve Sarkisian's offense. So maybe that marriage just wasn't great between Sark and Casey Thompson. Maybe Sark didn't believe that Casey Thompson was the right quarterback to run his offense. And more importantly, when it comes to this decision, maybe Casey Thompson didn't feel like he was the right fit for Steve Sarkisian's offense. And, well, even if he could have beaten Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card and Charles Wright and Malik Murphy in a quarterback competition, he just didn't feel like this offense maximized his skill set. So, once again, no big surprise here. I wouldn't have been shocked if Casey Thompson or Hudson Card entered the portal, even if Quinn Ewers wasn't coming. But when Quinn Ewers was coming, it felt like the writing was on the wall that at least one of those guys was going to leave. And Casey Thompson, considering he's got less eligibility than Hudson Card does, felt like he was the obvious favorite to be the guy to depart. So wish him all the best, and we'll see where he goes. I've seen some rumblings over the last couple of days that maybe Nebraska could be in play for Casey Thompson. Nebraska just lost Martinez, who had been there for 14 years. I think Martinez is transferring to K-State, so Texas fans will have to deal with Adrian Martinez next season. But Nebraska has a void at quarterback right now. Scott Frost, his seat is hotter than hot. Understandably looking at quarterbacks to come in and try to save his job. So we'll see if Casey Thompson ends up in Lincoln. That would be an interesting fit. I do think Casey Thompson can be a starting quarterback in college football next season. I think he can be a Power 5 starting quarterback next season. Do I think he can be a starting quarterback on a championship contending team next year? No, probably not. But I do think there are multiple Power 5 schools who would take a look and should take a look at Casey Thompson. So there you go. There's your quarterback attrition, right? Quinn Ewers coming in. That's good. Casey Thompson leaving. No surprise there. Once again, wish him all the best. And look, I think Quinn Ewers is going to be Texas's starting quarterback week 1 of the 2022 season. I don't know if Steve Sarkisian could have been able to sell this fan base on either Casey Thompson or Hudson Card as QB1 going into 2022, just based off what we saw from both of those guys last season. So writing fell on the wall. All the best to Casey Thompson. So there's some attrition right there. Now we go to coaches, and this attrition is bittersweet. I'll tell you why. Stan Drayton is gone. Stan Drayton took the head coaching job at Temple last Wednesday, and first and foremost, I will tip the proverbial cap to Stan Drayton for the job that he did in Austin. For me, there are 2 things that position coaches need to do to be successful. They need to recruit well, and they need to develop their talent. Stan Drayton did both of those things. Recruiting at the running back position for Texas has been great the last couple of seasons. Bijan Robinson, obviously the primest example of that. Top running back recruit in the country a couple of years ago. Stan Drayton was able to bring him in from out of state, despite some struggles on the field that UT had the year before Bijan signed with UT. That was a great get, and Texas's running back room is absolutely stacked right now, thanks in large part to Stan Drayton. And I think every Texas fan agreed with Steve Sarkisian's decision to keep Stan Drayton on staff after Tom Herman was let go. So the recruiting was there, development too. Look, Bijan is one of the best running backs in the country, and you could say, well, Bijan's just naturally gifted. He's naturally talented. How much of that was Stan Drayton? I think some of it is definitely Stan Drayton. But if you want to say, all right, I don't want to give Stan Drayton that much credit because Bijan could have been good if he was coached by anybody. Look at Rojo. To me, Rojo is the best example of Stan Drayton being a hell of a running backs coach and a hell of a developer of talent. Roschon Johnson was recruited to play quarterback, and he signed to play quarterback at Texas. And he had to switch to running back just 2 weeks before his freshman season because Texas was dealing with a bunch of injuries in its running back room. Rojo has been incredible. Like, he's looked like a natural over the last 2 seasons at the running back position. And I think a lot of that has to do with Stan Drayton. And Rojo himself would tell you that a lot of that has to do with Stan Drayton. So for me, that's the best example of Stan Drayton being a hell of a coach and being a great developer of talent. What he's done with a guy who didn't play running back at all in high school in Roschon Johnson and turning him into a really, really good running back. Is he Bijan level? No, but God, Rojo would be RB1 on a bunch of teams across college football. He's been a godsend to Texas. So Stan Drayton deserves a lot of credit for that. And look, Stan Drayton everywhere he's been has been successful at developing talent. You go back to when he was at Villanova. He worked with Brian Westbrook there back in his college days. than Stan Drayton at Ohio State with Zeke Elliott and Carlos Hyde, than his time in the NFL with Jordan Howard with the Bears. Everywhere Stan Drayton has gone, he's had success. So understandable that he got some looks to be a head coach in college football. And I think this is a good thing for Texas. Like, I want to see more of that going forward. You know, what this means is Stan Drayton did a great job, and people want to poach coaches from teams that have great coaching staffs. Look at Alabama every year. We see it with Nick Saban's assistants year after year after year. Case in point in Austin, teams poach coaches from great schools. Is Texas a great school right now? Obviously not. But I want to see more of this moving forward. Like, I don't want this to be a one-off where somebody gets poached from Steve Sarkisian's coaching staff. Guys, in a perfect world, in 2023, Kyle Flood is a head coach. In 2023, Pete Kwiatkowski is a head coach. That means those guys did phenomenal jobs in 2022, and other teams wanted them. Other schools wanted them because they did such a good job and they were able to help turn Texas around. Like, to me, that is a sign of a healthy program if other schools are poaching your coaches. Texas ain't healthy right now, but I want to see more of coaches getting poached. It's kind of bittersweet because you hate to lose good coaches, and Stan Drayton was that. But once again, if your coaches are being taken by other schools, that means they're doing a pretty damn good job. Ain't nobody looking at Pete Kwiatkowski as a head coach right now. I don't think anybody's looking at Kyle Flood as a head coach right now. If those guys are poached for head coaching jobs, then that means they had a lot of success, and that's a good thing for Texas. And that goes for position coaches too, right? You want your position coaches to be coached for either coordinator or head coaching jobs. I think that's the sign of a healthy program. So tip of the cap to Stan Drayton. It's bittersweet, right? Because you know you're losing a good one. But I think, once again, this can be a good thing for Texas and something I want to see more of moving forward. So Stan Drayton out, Tashard Choice in. This was announced over the weekend, and it's a rare time where Texas and Oklahoma fans can agree on something. It's a rare time where Texas and Oklahoma fans are happy with something. And Oklahoma fans are happy because, well, Tashard Choice had accepted the running back coach job at USC with Lincoln Riley. You know, every Sooner fan is still butthurt about Lincoln Riley leaving OU to go to USC. So Oklahoma fans are happy now that Tashard Choice is doing to Lincoln Riley what Lincoln Riley did to them. So OU fans kind of happy that Lincoln getting a small taste of his own medicine. And Texas fans are happy because, well, Tashard Choice, I think, is a great running back coach, and he's got a pretty damn good resume, and he checks a lot of boxes for me. So here's Tashard Choice's sort of timeline. Here's his resume to this point. He played college ball at Georgia Tech. He played in the league for 5 or 6 years, most of those with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're a Cowboys fan, you definitely remember the name Tashard Choice. And I think he finished playing ball in 2013, and he started his coaching career a couple of years later. So he started as an intern with the Dallas Cowboys, then was a GA at North Texas, then was a running backs coach at North Texas. Then the last 3 years, he's been the running back coach at Georgia Tech. And once again, I talked about it earlier, recruiting and development. Those are the two things you want to see from position coaches. Tashard Choice did a pretty damn good job recruiting at Georgia Tech. In 3 full cycles that he had in Atlanta, he brought in 3 4-star running backs. Georgia Tech, not the easiest place in the world to recruit. It's easier to recruit to Texas than to Georgia Tech. And Tashard Choice, once again, 3 4-star running back recruits in 3 cycles at GT. That's pretty impressive. And you look at development. Georgia Tech just had a running back transfer to Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs, who was a top 100 player in the country when Tashard Choice was able to secure his commitment to Georgia Tech a couple of years ago. Had a couple of really good seasons in Atlanta, and he's now transferring to Alabama. Like, you got to be pretty damn good to get an offer from Alabama. You got to be really good to get a transfer offer from Alabama too. And Jahmyr Gibbs has been a fantastic player, and he was developed by Tashard Choice. So I think you've got both of those boxes checked. Does he have the resume that Stan Drayton has? No, but Tashard Choice, I think, is an up-and-coming superstar in the coaching ranks. He's only 37 years old. He's kind of skyrocketed up the coaching industry, and he played in the league. Like, when you sign to play football at the University of Texas, your ultimate goal is to not only play on Saturdays, but to play on Sundays too. Who better to learn from than a guy who played on Sundays and a guy who had some success playing on Sundays? That's Tashard Choice right there. Here's Steve Sarkisian. I'm going to read a little bit of his statement because this became official over the weekend. So Sark released a statement talking about the hiring of Tashard Choice. Sark said, quote, "He's a high-energy guy who brings a ton of passion and expertise to the job. Tashard absolutely checks all the boxes as a tremendous on-field coach, outstanding recruiter, and as a guy that will be a great mentor and leader of men in our program. Not only has he done it at the highest level as a player, he's put in the work as a coach and is highly regarded at that too, end quote. So time will tell if Tashard Choice works out at Texas, but I really like the hire. Once again, to quote Steve Sarkisian, I think Tashard Choice checks all of the boxes and what you look for in a running backs coach. So Tashard Choice in to replace Stan Drayton. One final coaching change to discuss today. We'll see if anything else happens over the next coming weeks or months. But Andre Coleman, according to multiple insider sites, is out. He has been fired as the wide receivers coach at Texas. I saw this news first on Sunday. I believe Horns 24/7 had it first. Apologies if I am giving improper credit here, but yeah, multiple sources have confirmed this. Andre Coleman, no longer the wide receivers coach at Texas. To me, this is addition by subtraction. Like technically, Andre Coleman being ousted means it's a subtraction for Steve Sarkisian, but man, Andre Coleman did not do a great job. I don't even think he did a good job at Texas while he was here. To me, Andre Coleman should have never gotten the job in the first place. And I hate to dunk on a guy who just got fired, kick him in while he's down. That's not something I like to do. But look, Andre Coleman just didn't get the job done in Austin, plain and simple. And his timeline, he was elevated. So he was an analyst for Tom Herman in 2019, and he got elevated to full-time wide receivers coach after the 2019 season. It might have happened right before the bowl game in 2019. So he got elevated from an analyst to the actual wide receivers coach because, well, the players liked him. And Drew Marion was terrible at his job. He was the wide receivers coach before Andre Coleman. So he was elevated to the wide receivers coach position going into 2020. The wide receiver play at Texas was not good in 2020, guys. And once Tom Herman lost his job, I thought for sure that Steve Sarkisian was going to replace Andre Coleman, but that wasn't the case. Steve Sarkisian kept him around. Now, Sark did interview a couple of wide receiver coach candidates from around the country. I know Dennis Simmons at Oklahoma was a guy that Steve Sarkisian talked to. Simmons ended up getting a raise to stay in Norman. I don't know if he was ever officially offered the job in Austin, but ultimately he stayed in Norman. I think a couple of other coaches were interviewed or at least talked to by Steve Sarkisian, but ultimately Sark decided to keep Andre Coleman around. And at the time, like to me, this is not hindsight is 2020. To me, if you follow this channel or if you listen to me when I was doing radio in Austin, you know what I said about Andre Coleman a year ago. I thought it was a bad move by Steve Sarkisian to keep him around. I thought it was a bad move by Tom Herman to elevate Andre Coleman to wide receivers coach going into 2020. I thought it was an even worse move by Sark to keep Andre Coleman around. And well, I think I was right. Andre Coleman just didn't do a good job here, guys. Once again, recruiting and development. Those are the two things you look at. Development, not really there for the Texas wide receivers outside of Xavier Worthy. Now, sure, I'll give Andre Coleman some credit for Xavier Worthy. There's no doubt about that. He deserves some credit, I assume, for the tremendous freshman season that Xavier Worthy had. But and let's be honest, Andre Coleman didn't really secure the recruitment of Xavier Worthy. Like Xavier Worthy had signed with Michigan, and he only didn't go to Michigan because he couldn't get in. He had some academic issues, and he couldn't enroll at Michigan. So it's not like that was a great recruiting win for Andre Coleman, and he was able to land a really highly touted wide receiver recruit from out of state. Like Texas only got that guy because he couldn't get into Michigan. And then you look at other recruitments that Andre Coleman missed. I mean, this was a really good, almost historically good wide receivers class in 2022. I'm talking about in the state of Texas. Texas missed out on most of those guys. Evan Stewart, Armani Winfield, Chris Marshall, Caleb Burton, 4 of the top 5 receivers in the state ultimately decided to commit and sign away from Texas. Now, Andre Coleman did bring in Brandon Thompson. I'm excited about him. High 4-star kid, expected to be really good. But this was a really good wide receivers class in the Lone Star State this year, and Andre Coleman missed out on most of the guys. 4 of the top 5 guys in the state of Texas are playing elsewhere. So recruiting and development. And you look at development, guys, as I get back to that point, like outside of Xavier Worthy, where was the wide receiver play this year? The last 2 years, Joshua Moore never progressed. You could argue he regressed over the past couple of seasons. Guys like Marcus Washington and Alvante Woodard, who were highly touted recruits coming in, guys who have been in this program for a number of years, those guys never took that next step that we were hoping they would take. And man, once Jordan Whittington went out, it was one wide receiver that Texas had. The wide receiver play as a whole, not nearly good enough for UT in either of the past 2 seasons. So no surprise to me that Andre Coleman is out. I would have been even more furious with Steve Sarkisian if he brought Andre Coleman back for a 3rd year. I didn't think he got the job done. I feel like I've said that a lot. So there you go. Andre Coleman out. Who's coming in? We don't know at this point, but there are a couple of names that are being linked to the wide receiver coach vacancy at Texas right now. Both of them excite me for very different reasons. One of those names is Brennan Marion, who my old co-host in Austin, Rod Babers, lifetime Longhorn, played in the league. You guys all know who Rod B is. Rod B has been a fan of Brennan Marion for years, and he's been telling me about this guy for years. And Brennan Marion has skyrocketed up the coaching ranks. He was the wide receivers coach at Pitt this past season. I guess he still is technically the wide receiver coach at Pitt. And well, Pitt just had the Biletnikoff Award winner, Jordan Addison, won the award for the top receiver in college football. I think Brennan Marion deserves some credit for that. I don't know how many people knew who Jordan Addison was before this past season. Brennan Marion is credited with inventing the go-go offense, which has been kind of revolutionary in college football. And a lot of programs around the country have met with Brennan Marion and tried to emulate this offense that he runs. And when I tell you guys that this guy has skyrocketed up the coaching ranks, I mean, he went from high school coach to offensive quality control assistant to position coach to offensive coordinator at a D2 school. And now he's a wide receivers coach at Pitt, and he's getting looks at Texas. And it's not just Texas who has interest in bringing in Brennan Marion. This guy is, once again, elevating up the coaching ranks in a big, big way. He's had success everywhere that he's been. And you talk about development, I think he'd be there. And you talk about a great offensive mind, I think he is that. And a guy who could help Steve Sarkisian make this offense even better. We know Sark is a great offensive mind. Didn't always see it in 2021, but I'll give Sark's previous years the benefit of the doubt. I still think he's a great offensive mind. You combine that with Brennan Marion, who feels like he's an up-and-coming great offensive mind in the sport, that would hopefully make Texas's offense even more successful in 2022 and beyond. So I know a lot of y'all are excited about Brennan Marion and the potential of him being brought into Austin. And then the other name that I've seen linked to this wide receiver coach vacancy is Rashad Samples, who was at SMU for a couple of years, now is at TCU. He followed Sonny Dykes from Dallas to Fort Worth, took the drive down 30 to take that job in Fort Worth. He's the assistant head coach, also the run game coordinator, and I think running backs coach. I think those are the 3 titles that Rashad Samples has at TCU. And this dude's an ace recruiter. He is an ace recruiter. He's got unbelievable connections to the DFW Metroplex. And everywhere he's been, he's had a lot of recruiting success. And you understand why Sonny Dykes wanted him in the first place. And you understand why Sonny Dykes wanted him to follow him from Dallas to Fort Worth. I mean, SMU was bringing in some incredible recruits over the last couple of seasons. You're already seeing TCU have a lot of success on the recruiting trail, both with the class of 2022, but also with the class of 2023 as well. Rashad Samples, of course, was at Texas in 2018 as an assistant wide receivers coach. So he knows the area well. He's got some ties in Austin. And yeah, I mean, I think this dude is a star in the coaching ranks. He's only 27 years old. Really likable guy. Recruits rave about this guy. And he's been a menace to Texas over the last couple of years because Texas has lost out on some kids to SMU. If you can bring him in, if you can poach him away from Fort Worth, that would be massive. So Rashad Samples, he would check that recruiting box without question. Don't know if he would take the job if offered. I'd like to think that he would. Texas is an upgrade over TCU. Curious what titles he would have to get, though, because he's got a lot of titles at TCU. So I wonder what UT would have to do to try to get him if that's who they wanted. But yeah, both of those guys, Brennan Marion and Rashad Samples, would excite me if Steve Sarkisian hires them to be the new wide receivers coach. So I've been rambling. This video lasted way longer than I wanted it to. But there you go. Talking Texas football. Additions and subtractions for Steve Sarkisian. Excuse me. That's how you know I'm tired. That's how you know I'm done. Can't even pronounce the coach's name right. Can't even pronounce anything right at this point. So we're going to wrap up this video. Thank y'all for watching. Appreciate the continued love and support. Please like this video if you haven't yet. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Tap that notification bell so you're always informed whenever I release new content. Quick shout out to our video sponsor, Last Stand Hats. You've seen the discount code scrolling across the bottom of your screen, BK10. Enter that in at checkout. You'll get 10% off your purchase from laststandhats.com. Thank y'all again. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to each and every one of you. And until next time, y'all stay safe, y'all stay healthy, and hook 'em.